Yo, what's popping, Jimbos? This video is going to be about T4. I'll show you what I focus on when I play that role, and also a few tricks that you can use to your advantage. T4 is the only case in which you use a Mesmer as a terror role, which makes it quite unique. Its biggest strength is definitely fast casting. It provides more damaging power due to faster recharge time on wastrels, and at the same time makes enchantments casting more swift and convenient. Also, one of the things that he's better at, compared to different classes, is boosted domination attribute, which in combination with fast casting allows for a really strong damage output. Let's start with armor. Since you will be dealing damage constantly throughout the run, your armor has to allow you both better resistance and more spiking power. Every piece should include a +10 armor while enchanted insignia. There's really only one option for the headpiece, and it's obviously the domination one. It's also necessary to put a +3 fast casting rune somewhere to gain the most out of that attribute. Every other rune spot should be filled with additional energy. Also a +50 HP rune is nice to have. Let's go to weapons. The most versatile weapon that you can have is an envoy staff. There's only one thing that it can't do, but I'll talk about it later. It allows for not only your enchantments but also other skills to be casted in half the usual time in 30% chance. A shield set versus earth damage will increase your armor, which will prevent taking too much damage in some situations. It also gives you a small HP boost when you might need it. This is probably the most important weapon set besides the main one, which I'll talk about in a second. High energy set saved me from tough situations countless amount of times. Sometimes you just need that additional boost of energy, and that's when it shines. The main weapon I usually use is an earth staff with 40% chance for half casting time of earth magic spells. Thanks to the inherent 20% chance to half recharge on spells, you will be able to use EE more often to catch up to the T3. There are also some situations in which you don't really want to use that staff, and I'll point that out later. Those are the skills and attributes that we'll be using. You can understand very well what they exactly do just from their basic description. For a Mesmer to be able to maintain Obsidian Flesh, you need at least 16 points in Earth Magic, which you'll be able to acquire with Corn, Egg, Concept, and Lunar Blessing. To balance things out, you put 11 points into Domination Magic and 6 into Fast Casting. That way you will cap the possible amount of shortened casting and recharge time for your skills. The rest of the points go to Inspiration Magic, so your mantra reduces more damage and lasts longer. Before I move on to the actual explanation of the role, I'd like to show you some of the mechanics that I'll be using as T4. The most commonly used one by tanks and terras is probably right wall block. Melee mobs upon taking area of effect type of damage scatter around, which makes killing them very tedious and annoying. Right wall block prevents that from happening, which is very convenient. Here's how to perform it. By making all the enemies line up right next to the wall to their left and your character's right hand side, AoE damage makes them want to run into that direction, which leaves them in a passive state. It's important to make sure that all the enemies are as close to the wall as they can, otherwise they might just run back. Here is a few examples of me performing a successful right wall block. Moving on to the next mechanic. There's something described by players as a glitched mob. As T4 you will meet two types of those during every run, Terwebs and Collectors. Their behavior is different from the rest of their group, which can make them difficult to kill. What is a glitched mob exactly? Basically it's an enemy that is not attacking you even though you are clearly in his aggro range or auto attack range. He will cast his skills whenever they are available. When moving he will remain slightly to the right and diagonally towards you. If you attempt to move into his melee range, he'll run away in the same manner. Although it might seem like a huge inconvenience, there is a way to go around it. Usually glitched mobs like to stay in 50% of your aggro range, that's when they don't move. When killing Terwebs, what you can do is carefully walk around the glitched one remaining in his 50% aggro range, not too close and not too far away, and pull the rest of the group on top of him. That way you have a clean ball ready to spike. By going slightly out of his comfort standpoint, he's forced to move. You can abuse that by using right wall block. Even though there's a wall on your right side, he still wants to stand diagonally and to the right of you, and ends up being body blocked. While not being too useful against stairwebs, collectors behave in the same manner, which is why it's mainly used to deal with them in particular. Here is an example. Here is how to deal with a single collector spawn in bottom group pits. Like previously said, by simply remaining in half of your aggro range, he won't move. It's especially useful in this case. The collector will stay next to the threshers, which allows you to spike all of them at once. Well, how do you know if the collector is glitched? There are also attacking collectors in pits. The answer to that is, every group that consists of 3 or 4 enemies will always have a glitched collector if there's one. For example, if you have 1 thresher and 2 collectors in one group, there'll always be 1 attacking one and 1 glitched. Let's move on to the actual commentary. In chamber, first thing you do is right after the T2 pulls away the 8 axis, stand on top of the stairs and let the spiker EE to you. It allows him to get ready to spike faster. Next, once the ball is made, kill all the off targets, and most importantly, nightmares. You only need to get them below 90% HP because EOE will finish them off. If there is none, feel free to spike the graspings in the main ball. If you have enough energy, you can cast Obsidian Flash already here. Until pits, all you have to do is to serve as a target for the T3 and 2 to jump up. Use the same spots as shown in the video. At this point you can use your pecans. After the T3 DCs to the soul, use Obsidian Flash and EE to him right away. Next, use Stone Strike and a Mantra to gain energy while running. Recast your previously used enchantments and jump up to the T3 again.
Lightnings leapt upward, and the mountains quaked. Fire and smoke belched forth.
By hexing the soul, you make it respawn in better timing for the quest, provided that you won't be slowed down during the pop. While doing that, be extra careful of the skeletons patrolling in the middle. You don't have to do that if you don't feel comfortable with it. Let's stop here for a second. In this part, all you have to do is kill the bottom group, since it won't follow you up the monument. It's the first case of so-called bad aggro that you will have to deal with. Bad aggro basically means that you gained aggro of a group of enemies that was stationary, which makes them break very fast. Depending on the spawn, you can use either of the presented before mechanics. If you didn't kill all the collectors, make sure you walk sideways to let the remaining ones catch up to you after they cast their corpse exploiting skills. If you don't have any collectors left, you can run forward.
Lightning leapt upward. Fire and smoke.
Once you reach this point, carefully walk into the spot shown in the video and right wall block all the collectors. Make sure to gain aggro of the group standing behind you by touching them with your aggro bubble. While you are waiting for all of them to group up, put empathy on both Wayshells and the Lonely Treasure on the right. Next, spike the collector ball. You only need 3 sets of Wayshells to kill them. Check if there are any treasures behind you. If there's a single one, repeat the same thing as before. If there are 2, put 2 sets of Wayshells on each of them. If there are 3, accordingly as to killing collectors, 3 sets of Wayshells is enough. The same thing applies to terror webs. After the 2 are dead, the 3rd one will unglitch and start attacking you. While the terror web is slowly dying, you can start killing the remaining treasures. Run to the ledge and let your T3 know when you are ready to take the quest and EE to him. Immediately gain aggro of the hill. It will provide you enough energy if you need to go to the safe spot. In this run, the top aggro wasn't in range of spirits, so I could just stay in the middle and start spiking the quest, terrorwebs and skellies. Here is what to do when it's not safe. The T3 will aggro top while running to backside, which will make them want to go around. Your job is to grab the aggro and stand at the end of the wall and body block the collectors. Also make sure to pull the Thresher forward so he's out of range of the quest spirit when it spawns. After that is done, you can move into the safe spot if you have any skellies on you. Here's when the shield set might come in handy. After all the quest spirits moved away, or when the collectors are dead, you are free to go out. Back to the previous situation. If you have one skelly, you can empathy him and Wayshells surrounding him terror webs without having to hide in the safe spot. After all your aggro is dead, wait for the last spawn of terror webs. Check the chained soul. If there are all 4 spirits attacking it, you don't have to do anything. That means it will die soon and the spirits will move up afterwards. If the soul is close to full HP and there's only 1 spirit attacking it, run down and kill it. Kill the last spawn as efficiently as you can and jump down with the T3. Let the T3 jump up by targeting you from this spot. Use EE to catch up to the T3 while running to plains. Use your energy management skills on Obsidian Flesh before aggroing the Dream Rider. Position yourself next to the Skelly, empathy him, and wastrels the nearby Wailing Lords. Use a mob stopper if you want to, but it's completely optional. After the patrol moves away, run to the middle, stun in 50% aggro of the Terror Web so they stay balled up, and then empathy and wastrels the Dream Rider until he dies. Next, kill the Terror Webs and then the Wailing Lords. Here is where I usually switch to an envoy staff. Let me explain why. Those are the skills of the 4 horsemen. They have many versatile skills, but the only 2 you have to worry about as a Terra are Power Block and Signet of Humility. The reaction time is pretty much instantaneous. That means they can power block your skills even if you drop your enchantments for a split second. Envoy staff gives you 30% chance to cast in half the usual time, which basically means you are slightly more safe with it in your hand. Why don't you use a nerf staff which has 40% chance to do that instead? Well, the normal staff has an inherent 20% chance to half the recharge, which means if you get lucky, you have to cast 2 OB flashes for the duration of 1. This wouldn't be too bad if it wasn't for the Signet of Humility. Because it's a Signet, they can use it even if you have your Obsidian Flesh or Shadow form up. The only counter to that is to make the elite be always disabled, because they can't use it on a recharging skill. You can do that by simply always recasting it when it's available. Although it doesn't seem like a problem even if you get the half recharge, using another 25 energy just because of that can be inconvenient. Wait for the T3 to let you know when he's ready for the quest. After you take it, run to the pit side. Make sure that you aggro them when they're both moving. That way you don't get bad aggro, which means you can pull them further and also you can run forward. In this run I aggroed the left one way too early and that's why it broke. Likely as a Mesmer you have enough spiking power that it doesn't matter. Put empathy on each of them and wastrels them until they die. Wait for the T3 to finish his side and that's it. That would be it for this video. I spent really lots of time making it and I hope you enjoyed it. And most of all that you learned something. Thanks for watching and leave some feedback in the comments.